So learning through reflection. Nice little picture of a reflection. But what am I going to try to do today? So two things. Explore some definitions and models of reflective practice, and then maybe discuss why it is important for social work professionals to be reflective and to practice reflection. So just very briefly, reflection is embedded in the professional context and standards. And as an example, this is Social Work England standards, the professional standards, which in actual fact, you won't really pay much attention to the SWEPs, as they call them this year, but you will do next year, towards the end of next year in particular. So it's about using supervision and feedback to critically reflect on, identify my learning needs, so on and so forth. Obviously very pertinent for you at the moment. But you then reflect on the learning activities afterwards and think about how they link to your values and the impact that might have in practice. So these things are all interconnected. The Skills England Apprenticeship Social Work Standards talk about social work behaviours, communicating openly, honestly and accurately, listening to people, applying professional curiosity. All of these things might be described as reflection in action. The process of talking to another person involves active listening. And as I like to say, listening is doing. You know, that active listening of itself is doing something, sometimes something very important. And of course, there's professional capabilities framework. This is PCF 6. Apply critical reflection and analysis to inform and provide a rationale for professional decision making. So that's a very clear indication of how decision making and reflection are linked to each other. I'm not going to read it any more than that. So just as a little whole class exercise, because I'm going to shift you out into little rooms in a bit. But when you think about yourself as a social work practitioner, what are your beliefs about yourself, families that you might work with, or children, and where do you think these beliefs came from? So I'm going to open the discussion, but you'll notice there's a little picture to the right-hand side. Now, Jacqueline may have already done this, or if she hasn't, she may bring this up in another session. But this is from a little website called Social Work in 40 Objects. It was set up by a social work academic, and it has a whole series of different objects that are important to people. Sometimes Jacqueline asks people to bring in something from your social work practice that's really important to you. So, for example, one of the objects that somebody brought in was a bin bag. You kind of think, what? So the importance of the bin bag was that this was a person working with a lot of children looked after, children in care. And it is not unusual for children in care to have to move from one place to another, sometimes at short notice. And quite often then all their belongings go into a bin bag. And it was kind of like bad enough having to move, but there's a certain kind of amount of humiliation about putting all your stuff into a bin bag. Now, there are actual people out there in the world who try to change that and get kind of proper kind of suitcases and rucksacks and stuff for children specifically for that purpose. So you may, in fact, have been outside a London prison and you'll see people getting released from prison and they have a see-through bin bag, which HMP written on the side of it, that they can walk around on their first day of freedom. So it's worth having a look. This particular social work here is actually talking about reflection. So she uses a mirror as a metaphor for her about what's important in practice. So let's ask that question first. What are your beliefs about yourself? Like, why are you doing this business? What do you think about yourself? Are you one of these helpy people? Right.
I can break the awkward silence. So I'll try and do it off the top of my head.
I could sit with that silence a lot longer, you know.
That's right. Just looking at the model in front of me, yourself, I would hope that I have, not hope, I know that I have positive values as a person. I want to do the right for people that come into a service. I want to do right for people that are coming into a service like um that are in need of social services support. So
Uh-huh.
that will be trying to incite self-actualization to meeting better goals around the barriers that they're kind of facing. And I'd like to mirror that off of my values of wanting to help and empower people.
Okay.
Families, I feel that it's kind of like the key to security. And it's important that within our family network, we're safe and that we want to have those positive interactions so that we can develop and grow. Um, and children, I think, like the future. So, like, mirroring it off of my perception of giving the best for my children, I want them to develop emotionally, physically, and kind of like grow and prosper into a world where they can do better than I have done for myself. So where do the values and beliefs come from? I think it comes a lot from my upbringing,
Mhm.
especially whereby I was brought up by a single mother that was a mother and a father to me. So she
Mhm.
had to teach me about how to navigate throughout life growing up, like what to do when you're getting stopped by police, how to respond, go to school, go
Mhm.
to university, and do better to what she has kind of done. So those are kind of like my views and values, how I feel.
Well, Craig, she seems to have done a pretty good job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sold.
Uh,
That's it. You hired.
okay, Craig, thank you very much. Shukri, what are your thoughts?
I don't think I'm that articulate to do that amazing, but um, I suppose for me is giving something back. I think I have been
Mhm.
fortunate in a lot of my circumstances that also was not fortunate, but I seem to had whatever that means a lot of luck with the support and nurturing um in terms of in some areas. And I always, there was something that always attracted me for supporting children, supporting families. And I think, I believe we can all make a difference. And I think that's what really drives me. And I believe that people can make their own decisions, and all we have to do is guide them to it, or give them
Mhm.
the tools to show them that they can achieve their goals. And if that does not happen, then I suppose we have responsibility for those children to help the parents to meet their needs. And I want all organizational, so I'm gonna bow out.
Thank you very much, Shukri. Jude?
Right. Obviously, I'm not going to be as articulate as my two previous colleagues. I'm just
That's
going to
what
give a
both of
few.
them said as well, Jude, So I'm
I'm
not,
just going to, yeah, I'm going to just give a few brief outlines.
uh-huh.
Generally, I have a background in adult social care. So for me, I'm just a simple, regular individual, and I'm passionate about the work that we do, making a difference in the lives of individuals. And importantly for me, I believe in human relationships. Are for me are the thing that is what I really do believe in quite significantly. I think the ability to initiate, build, and sustain relationships is the key. Human connectivity is the key to us to well-being, so to speak. So many things flow from human connectivity, and especially positive human connectivity. Of course, I'm not talking about the negative things which do happen as a result of connectedness with ourselves. But and of course the background of which the reason why I have this kind of beliefs is like Craig, having been born and brought up in a simple African country in Uganda, somewhere in East Africa, several years ago. Of course, I lost my old man when I was about 4 years old. So I've only known my mother, who has doubled for me as my dad as well. So for me, I always call her a super mom. We're four children. She raised us all, took us all to university. She never remarried. She was about maybe 25 when she lost her husband, but she didn't remarry, and she just raised us all. and took us all to university. And that is something that stays with me, and all the things that we do, all of us as a family unit, is which in all our different, because for some strange reason we all work in health and social care. It doesn't matter whether it's here. Three of us are here who work in the same industry, and my eldest brother is in Uganda, but he's a lecturer as well in the medical services. So we have, for some strange reason, we're in the line of work which involves making a difference in the lives of individuals. And I think we picked this up from my mother because of the care and support and love and the nurturing she gave us all throughout our lives. And so that, for me, that's where I come from. And that's what I take and do in my single role every single day, when I try to make a difference in the lives of the individuals that we provide care and support for. And that is what I'll do going forward.
Thank you so much, Jude. And you're the person who said you couldn't articulate or weren't be able to articulate as well as the other two. Come on. That was lovely. Thank you so much. Nat, you have to unmute yourself, I think.
Oh, sorry. Selfishly, I started off in this sector because I started off working mental health another lifetime ago, because I wanted to understand more about mental health, to understand my own head more. So selfishly, that's how I kind of got into the sector, and then naively wanted to help everyone and make everything better for everyone. And I think over the years, it is also about wanting to make sure everyone's got the support that they require to do the things that they want to. Kind of recognizing that I think we can be quite prescriptive and making sure that it's, how do you want to do this? What can you still do yourself, while kind of still wanting people to while maintaining people's independence. I think when it comes to family, maybe because of my experiences, I don't think the family are the be all and end all. A lot of focus sometimes is on family, and I think we need to be mindful that family aren't always the best thing. And because you're related doesn't mean that you have to keep in contact with them, doesn't mean they're not toxic. But I also think what's important is keep in mind people's chosen family, their other support. If they haven't got family, it doesn't matter. Who have they got that's around them that's important to them, and being mindful of that, while being mindful that actually family members might be trying to get in there and actually they're not the best people for that. I mean, I do adults, I've never worked with children, but again, I guess that thing about independence for people is important to me. I'm stubbornly independent, again, single parent family, but anything good about me is because of my grandmama. But yeah, making sure people, I guess, wanting people's voices to be heard. And I mean, I know we can't always give everything people want, but at least being able to have that conversation where people feel that they're heard, they've got the support to be able to do what it is they want to do, is kind of an important thing for me.
Excellent. No, thank you so much. Hasanatu. You get the final say.
As for me, the reason why I decided to go into social work is because of my upbringing. So I've always wanted to be a lawyer, but then working at reception at the council where I'm currently working, when I saw social workers, the way they were working and the difference they were making, that really resonated with me, as I wanted to make a difference, as even if it's not a big impact, but at least I wanted to put my own input in not improving. It's not every situation can improve things, but at least contribute to somebody's life as best as I can. And as as Nat said earlier, that families might be good and some might be bad. For me, my experience growing up, family is not always important, because some of the families in your life are the ones that can even bring you down or make you or break you. You understand? So it depends on the sort of family the person's got, or it depends on the family, basically. It doesn't mean that because this person's family is a must that they're going to be good to you. It doesn't always work like that.
No.
And I feel like children, for me, I love children, even from when I was growing up. I always think that children are the people that's going to make a difference, they're the priorities of society, because they're like the next generation. So, and yeah, so coming from a background where I live with my stepmom and my dad, and my mom lived in Africa, coming from Sierra Leone, where there was like 10 years war. So all of that,
indeed.
yeah, so all of that is the one that shaped me, and plus the way I saw the social workers in my local authority working to make change in the children's life, that really did, inspire me, even though I was really shy to go into that role. But that really made me reflect and then looked into my own life and see how, because I didn't have anyone to talk to. I was so scared of my parent that my stepmom and my dad, that I didn't tell anybody what I was going through. A lot of people don't know my story, but my story is really deep. So I want other children's story to be heard. They need somebody to, to present their story to, just to listen. Sometimes you don't have to solve, as you said, you don't have to solve issues. Sometimes listening to somebody can really
Absolutely.
help them sometimes, So
Yeah.
that's why, that's where I am, where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, if a child doesn't have the chance to tell their story, they're still carrying it around, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's not as if it goes away just because you're kind of having the opportunity to say it. Guys, thank you very much. That was quite touching. But you can see the values are important and they drive us, don't they? And even though we have differences in the stories that were just described there, there's a lot of commonalities, isn't it? So a lot of the time things are not either or, they're both and, isn't it? So we kind of try to avoid thinking in kind of simplistic terms. But there's something there about values and articulation and why we're doing these things. So a kind of slightly cynical pushback will come from my brother-in-law, who would say things like, Dermot, you're just do-gooders. What do we think about the idea about being do-gooders? I have a response to Larry about this myself, but...
Do-gooders makes it sound like you're doing something to people. It's kind of doing good with people. Like,
yeah.
People think you just kind of do-gooders makes people think, oh, they just come in, tell them what to do all this. But it's more do with us or something. Kind of want to do it with the person you walk with.
When you talked, first of all, that was very clear come across that's your attitude and belief. That
it's
you
the partnership,
do with,
isn't
not
it?
to.
Like, that person's their own expert. We learn from them, and we're just there to kind of be that little side part to help them get where they're on their way to or going.
Okay, thank you. Jess?
I guess in a way, we get something out of it as well. Like if we feel like we are making a positive impact, that's obviously good, but it makes us feel good too. So it is a little bit selfish in that way sometimes, if that makes sense.
There's an interesting
We get
thought,
fulfillment as well.
Okay. Okay, that's an interesting little dilemma right there, isn't it? But anyway, okay,
Yeah.
Tom?
I think I'd pity his view of humanity. And I would wonder, at what point have we become so disconnected as people that providing help to those in most need is seen as doing good.
Yeah. Actually, do you know, funny enough, that kind of links to what Jess had to say. There is kind of, you can have a very cynical approach, but if you want the world to be in a certain way, you should help it to be a certain way, isn't it?
Exactly.
And so therefore that kind of in a way maybe resolves the conflict between I'm getting something out of this, there's nothing wrong with that, feeling good about doing good, that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Actually, when I talk to Larry and he says these things, I said it's better than being a do-badder, Larry. Do you know what I mean? But you are right, and there's a kind of quite important principle about humanity and community, things of that nature there. Maz?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in response to the do-gooder kind of comment, I feel that yeah, you can take the view that we're just sort of going out to be virtuous people. We can pat ourselves on the back. That's one view. But at the same time, I suppose we're just by default, there's so many things which where people are disadvantaged, or there's inequality, or there's structural issues that it doesn't even, I don't know, I guess it doesn't feel like we're necessarily, trying to be saying we're doing good. We're just trying to merely balance out you know, some of the things which are kind of seem unfair. You know, I don't know if that's
something like maybe social justice, Maz, perhaps, that there should be.
It's like social justice in the sense that when we're not saying we're trying to, like, you know, be superheroes. We're just trying to right the kind of unfairness that, you know, is already there, which we all kind of contribute to. But I also would take the view that you don't have to be just doing social work to be good. There's a lot of people who do good,
Absolutely,
directly or indirectly. So yeah.
I mean, it's for everybody, isn't it? I suppose there are competing views of the world. Some people think it's about competition, being the best, pushing everybody else out of the way, and that by their deed shall you know them. I am successful. I've got all this stuff, and it's because I fought for it and beat the hell out of everybody else. Or your view of the world might be that we all gain from collaboration, cooperation, and we all can lift each other up instead of being in competition for everything. I know which side of the fence I would fall on. Serena.
Yeah. I just wanted to add on what Jessica and Maz said about, there is, of course, a certain amount of vanity to making like social work your actual life profession, like social justice warrior in a way.
Yeah, I'm signing up for that too.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess it is there is certain amount of confidence in desire to do this for a living, to do good things for a living. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is that you do have to keep body and soul together, and that requires money in the modern world, you know. But you could have choose many other things, isn't it? You could have choose to be a hedge fund manager or whatever it is. But there's something about our values that this is where we end up, you know. And that we'll give the last note to Joyty. If she can find the unmute button. No. There we go.
Yeah, so just a second, what Tom was saying. I mean, there are so many on Reels again, dopamine. We see animals helping each other.
That's true.
You know, so it's just a natural instinct, and it's a very natural instinct in every single thing that breathes and lives. So some of us want to do a bit more. I mean, my story is, why did I join this? I joined SADC, the Independent Living Team, SRC. I just felt like my place with reablement and plans helping people get more independent. That's when I then moved into this role as an assistant practitioner, where I could do a bit more, you know, where as a social worker. So it's yes, it is some, you can look at things and bring things together. Everybody has their own different skill sets and knowledge of resources. So bringing that together, and it's not easy trying to sell some, you just essentially sometimes also selling a dream, or asking people, don't look this way. This is where you've been living, but look, there's another opportunity. These are avenues, you know. So it is challenging,
of course,
in a way, but it's also what's the word? Sort of
rewarding,
gives you some rewarding was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we grow through challenge, don't we? That helps develop. Okay, so Natasha's getting the last word, as it turns out, Jyoti. I thought you were, but Natasha. Okay, so but I'm going to move on afterwards, Natasha. But
I put my hand up at the last minute.
Never apologize for talking.
So I just sat here for like that whole time and just really thought about what the question was, and like I think on an individual level, I would say, yeah, you know, encouragement, like want to help people and all of that. But then I think about the social structure of society as well, and my position in that as a Black woman. And then I think since growing up, I've always been encouraged to help others, and I've always been encouraged into these type of roles. So for instance, youth worker, supporting housing officer, like there's so many roles that I've worked in where they're all supporting others. And I would also say that even in my school life, things like the type of of roles that they discuss with us, it all kind of shapes us into, it's not just our independent choice, it's other influences is what I'm trying to say. So
Sure.
although like, I want to say like, yeah, absolutely, I want to be here and help people, I also think that there's some conditioning around why some of us in terms of are in positions, especially if we're coming from working class backgrounds, if we have like other sort of protected characteristics, how we end up in these sort of roles.
Do you think that conditioning, that we would include gender in that? The fact that you're a
Yeah,
woman?
absolutely. When I think about my mum came over here as like part of the Windrush generation, and she was a qualified nurse, and they were like, she wasn't qualified. She was back in the Caribbean, but when she came over here, they encouraged her into being a qualified nurse. So then she was working in care homes and then hospitals. And so in that way, I also think that when she came over, it was part of where did they need her, and they would assist her in getting into the roles that were needed at the time.
Absolutely. Natasha, you do like to broaden things out into the bigger picture. I like that too. Because this is the truth, isn't it? Our motivations, etc., are both personal and in the wider context, aren't they? And the influences are many and various. And yet here we are. But there are some fundamental beliefs about the nature of human beings and society and what kind of a society we want to live in that also seem to be quite important in our decisions and our career choices. So that's kind of like a little bit of reflective practice. And there's various definitions, a great many texts written about it. This idea of looking back on an experience, making sense of it to identify what to do in the future. Very simply, do something about it, think about it, come to conclusions about it, and do something else again in the future. And there's also a series of skills that might be involved in this. So some of those skills might be, how would I say, journaling, writing things down, and reflective writing that you'll be doing throughout the next couple of years. So there are both kind of, I suppose, internal processes or things that happen in dialogues or in groups, and you can always record these. And of course, there are models. And this is a very simple model that we have an experience. We kind of reflect on it, and then maybe we do something different in the future. That experience and that reflection leads us to another kind of step on the road, as it were. So I'm going to ask you in a minute or two to split up into groups and do a little bit of reflection and discussion. And the first one is from social pedagogy. And in this instance, I've kind of done the story for you, but I'm just going to ask you to reflect upon it and think about it a little bit more, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. And the second one, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I'm going to tell you the initial presentation of the problem, and then I would like you to come back and in your groups talk about it and see what could we do with this. I have given you a bit of a clue. So the first one is from a social pedagogy program called Head, Heart and Hands. And this was a program where they worked with foster carers, teaching foster carers about reflection and practice and social pedagogy and all sorts of things. And they like a particular model, which is in a later slide, but it's also, if you go on the chat, there's a little document there, and you can open that document, I hope, or at least I hope sufficient people in your group will be able to open it. If not, perhaps you could open it on your own machine and have a little word. So this is what the foster carers say. We recently had to deal with an incident where Jess ran away. Now, any of you were anything to do with fostering, you'll immediately kind of, your attention will be, because then we know we're kind of in a situation here that this is serious business. She was having to deal with too many big changes in her life. When she came back, she said she wanted to go away to think and wanted to go into respite. Now, if a person maybe goes into respite or another form of care, it may mean that she might not come back. And in this instance, they thought, everybody involved thought that's what would happen. If she went in, she wouldn't return. Now, they use Greenaway's 4-stage model. They particularly picked this model. Greenaway was a kind of outdoorsy sort of person. So they do a lot of taking young people out into the country and learning through activities. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people, don't like this idea, but in my early careers, we used to take bunches of kids out. I've said that before. I'm not going to go through all of that again. But, that basic idea that children should have opportunities to be out in the countryside, to be out in nature. And so that's where Greenaway's model comes from. Very active doing and then reflecting and thinking and talking about it. And they use that model very effectively. So I'd just like you to read through that and say a little bit about what you think about that. So in a sense, that puzzle is already sorted for you, but I'd like to hear what you think about it. This is a slightly different one. This is a HCA, healthcare assistant. There's a story about the HCA as well, which I might share with you afterwards, but she's unqualified and working in a residential setting like a lot of people are. There's relatively high needs, there's quite a lot of dementia, etc. So the older person in this setting, if there isn't much of a plan B, there's not much option. You're running out of options. You can't live at home. Trying to find another place for this man to live is going to be very difficult. But the problem is that he is sometimes quite aggressive to clients and other people, particularly if they stop him from doing something. Now, it turns out the HCA actually works very well with him, and she is one of the few people that can kind of get him to do things and have a conversation with them. But the thing they're particularly worried about is usually in the early morning, he gets up like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. He goes into every room or tries to go into every room in the residential setting, right? Very upsetting for the residents, some of whom are kind of already a little bit confused about what's going on in the world. And if staff try to stop him, he can actually get quite aggressive because he's determined to go into every room, and they try to do a lot of things. So that's my puzzle for you, and my little hint and tip for this. And I just want you to sit around in a group and see if you can work out what might work in this instance. Is that what helped in this instance is life story work. Now, life story work is much more common with children and family services than it is with adult services. But I think it's quite important in adult services too, and we can get benefits from it. So when the first one, just reflect on Jessica's story, tell me what you think about that and anything you noticed about it. And in the second option, see if you can work out a way forward in this particular situation. Now, there's a little thing here. Okay. All right, I see what's happened here. Oh, this is deeply annoying. I think because I didn't actually set up this meeting, I don't have control of it. So I'm not sure that I can actually split you up into rooms. Okay, so we've been going an hour. So I'm going to try to fix the problem, but I'm not going to bore you by making you sit around and watch me trying to fix the problem. Can we take a break right now? And I think 15 minutes will be fine. It's the afternoon. Yes, Matt.
Just a quick one.
Sure.
What size groups were you thinking? Because we've Jacqueline had set us up in group previously, and we've used those rooms a few times, and we've got a join-in link to them. So we're in groups of about 5, 6 before.
Oh, okay. Do you think that? I mean, thank you for coming up with a suggestion here. Would that be possible that you use the existing links?
I think we can. Twice. I think it's fine for me.
Well,
yeah.
Why don't you just try that out? We'll still take the break. But can we try that out now? And if you can go off into the rooms, you probably won't be able to see the same slides, though, is my only guess.
Yeah, we can go into the groups.
Yeah, we can go into the groups.
Okay, guys, away you go then. You know what the task is. So what I would say is it's now 2:30. Come back at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Give yourselves a little bit of time to have a break, and then hopefully that'll be enough time to have a bit of a discussion about what I've just said. Is that okay?
So are we having a break first and then go into the groups? Or are we going into the groups right now?
I think what you should do is make up your own mind. I think actually try. I know. No, I'm annoyed. We were talking about self-efficacy all morning, right? But try out and see if the groups work, and then discuss in the group what you want to do, and make up your own mind about how you want to manage the time. I'm fine with that. Use your programs.
But Damot, but you
Yes.
would like us back at 3 p.m.
Yes, please.
Okay, got you. Okay, thank you.
I mean, if 3 p.m. turns out to be not enough time for you, just kind of message me. I can see people are already going off into groups because I'm seeing on hold messages already, so it seems to be working.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Emma, just quickly, sorry. I
Yes,
don't think
Jess.
I'm on the list either for the interviews.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will rectify that.
Thank you.
Can I ask, how do you check if you're in the group? How do you check that? Because I'm not quite sure.
Were you in previous groups?
I wasn't. Yes.
Okay. All right then. Okay, guys. Before you all go away, the people who haven't gone away and haven't joined the group yet, when you get into the group, can you invite tutors? And there is a facility usually that you do that. Or sorry, what did you say?
No.
Go into the email. Yeah, you go into your Hackney, the Kingston email.
Yeah.
And then you go through because Jacqueline set these things up. Yeah, look through her emails, or you can go on the calendar either. Yeah, go on the calendar on Teams, and you'll see on the date from either Monday or Wednesday. Yeah, and then you see the breakout room for.
Okay, got you.
Yeah,
got you. Thank you, Jude.
you've seen it.
Okay, yes, yeah, thank you.
All right,
guys. Thank you for helping each other.
Group F. Yes.
Yeah. That's no. I'm in Group A. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Jude. Okay. Seems to be working pretty good. But not for everybody quite yet. So I'm on the first window here. Alexandra, have you been able to find a group to join? You're on mute, so okay.
Yeah, I'm in the group.
Excellent, thank you so much. Nicholas and Maxine and Natasha. This is Natasha Marembe now. Out of the Matthews. Have you been able to find a group? Oh, that's a qualified yes. Yeah, good plan there, Pascal. Did you get soaked there?
No.
Oh, good.
Who's that?
My phone was showing whatchamacallit, thunder and lightning.
Yeah, I know.
No evidence of it yet. Did that go well?
Sorry, can we take a picture of the case scenarios? We didn't take pictures. Where's Jesse's one? Give me control.
I think I'll have to go down to the shop and get some bread and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. Like what?
Instead,
You'd probably be cooking it anyway, watching. I've cooked already 2 or 3 times this week.
yeah, not cooked 2 or 3 times this week.
I could be your chef, your commie chef, the chopping up chef. Oh, okay. All right, let's check.
Oh, I guess the other teams are not bad.
Wow, I'm never earlier on time. I'm impressed.
Well, should we go back and continue, or we should just stay here and wait for them?
Well done. It said 3. It's 1 minute past.
Yes, no, you are definitely there. However, somebody asked, because we're talking a lot, and could they have a little bit extra time? So they suggested 5 past, and I suggest 10 past. So take your time. There's no hurry. 10 whole minutes. Oh my God!
Then we have to go back.
All right, I'll be.
Well, you
I'll be
don't have
back
to go back.
in-
You just use the time any way that you want. It's up to yourself. If you want to take a break, that would be a good time.
All right, I'll be back in 10 past then. See ya.
All
Yeah.
right. See you in 9 min wee.
Absolutely. Oh, I just realized my mic was on. You might have heard me talking to my cat.
No, I missed that conversation. I would have just assumed you were talking to yourself because I do it all the time.
Oh, well, I do too, but I was just telling the cat it was too early because he starts his campaign to be fed around 4 o'clock and he's not due until 5 o'clock. So it doesn't matter how often you tell him.
He still likes to push those boundaries.
Oh, yes.
I'm
Anyway.
also struggling with a very naughty and overeating cat, which is
Really?
just trying to reduce the amount of treats she's having, and she's not having it. She's very upset.
Okay, yeah.
Sounds like me. If you took away my treats, I wouldn't be happy.
I agree with that. That really, if you find out a way of making this effective that you can reduce treatage, I will also sign up.
She acts like she never seen food. Like she acts like she wasn't fed in like days when she's
Yeah.
like begging for them.
Yeah, I know.
My vet
Funny.
said that there is automatic chip feeder because my one is very fat as well. So it cost £170. I didn't get it, but it's like with a chip, and then it can tell which cat is it, and then puts enough food. But
well, we've had chips for the back door flap, but like any cat we've ever had always loses the chip within about a week. The chips never stay. Yeah. I grew up with dogs. I don't know when I became a cat person.
Yeah, I'm just not an animal person in general.
Oh, wow.
I like other people's. I just don't want the mess, the fur, the dirt, the responsibility, and the looking after in my space.
Well, our cat isn't dirty, and there isn't much fur.
Can't say the same. My one just vomited, so.
Oh, well, cats aren't for anyone, for everyone, are they? Same as people aren't, or families, or whatever.
I don't know if you can see my cat behind me.
Well, quite often cats have a tendency to they like keyboards, I think, or they think they're being left out, so they want to join in and they come up on the table. And Nemo hasn't done that today, mainly because I closed the door.
I think they might as well from the laptop or whatever device you're using. I'm convinced they love the heat.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they do. They get really hot, don't they, laptops?
They do.
Oh, it's napping. Is it a girl or a boy?
Yeah, it's a girl. That's the girl. I've got another one somewhere. Oh, the other one is there. I don't know if you can see it sleeping in
the other one's waiting to surprise you. That's one of the best things about having cats is that you find them in surprising places around the house. They just kind of turn up, and then suddenly they are usually posing in some sort of a way. They're terrible show-offs.
It's not
okay, I wonder how we're doing. I could see that most people are back or are on the way back. Yeah, so you may as well just kind of go ahead. So what did you make of the first one? Anybody can speak perhaps for their group, or what was your reflection or your discussion like? And I mean, it's after the fact, isn't it? Because if you read through the thing, it shows you how they used reflection, the foster carers. But I mean, any thoughts, comments, observations, and then we'll go to the second one.
I think we were just talking about whilst we might have things to suggest, like you had said in the video that we tried to watch. Angela said she's having technical issues getting back in the main chat, but yeah, that we might just want to sort of not offer solutions initially, just to kind of, because she's obviously being overwhelmed, and just hold space and listen. And if anything, she might have some kind of suggestions about how to move forward.
What did you think about the solution they came up with?
The solution in Jessica's story?
Yeah.
Well, did we think of a solution, or what did we?
No. What they in the handout? You maybe not everybody.
Oh, sorry, that's an O of realization.
Okay. I like them all, but do share.
I don't think we saw that we looked at the handout.
Okay. Well, have a look in your own time. I mean,
was
essentially what happens is they were trying to kind of take a step back and think about what's actually going on for her at the moment. And they wrote her a letter. And kind of, Maz, it kind of matches what you said. And they were kind of saying that it was okay to take some time and think. And they understood that she was overwhelmed by the challenges she was experiencing. And I don't know if any of you, some of you kind of either work with children or maybe have them. But there are times when you need to let a child percolate, and you need to let a child just kind of think it through themselves and don't put pressure on them. And even in this situation in particular, there might be pressure in the sense that you're kind of thinking, oh, we have to do something about this quick. Do you know what I mean? And you have to kind of draw yourself back a little bit and just take a deep breath and allow the young person to have a little bit of a kind of a little moment to themselves. And they use Greenaway's 4-stage model of reflection to do that, because you know, and it's just, I use it as an example because this is a nice example of effective reflection, but it actually has real world application. It's not just they're sitting there thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? They do something, and it turns out that it works quite well, and it enables the child or the young person to kind of have a little bit of her own reflective time and then come back and be able to talk to them about it, you know, which is, of course, what you're looking for. Philippa?
Yeah, I was going to say that I actually read the handout, which is a rare thing. I managed. It was only 2 pages, so I read it.
That's right.
But I kind of like the role that the social work, for me, the more kind of relevant for me was the role of the social worker in that situation, and how they kind of together they discussed and they were like, okay, maybe you could try this model. And then they tried and it worked really well. And I also thought it was a good model for me to use with my daughter sometimes.
Yes. Oh, well, you know, the kind of life skills come into social work, and social work skills might come into life on occasion, isn't it? You know. Okay. Any other thoughts there? You don't have to. But... I mean, for me, it's purely about the practical application of these things. Jude.
Yeah, the model itself I find quite simplistic and frankly, it unworkable. It's practical in the sense that it kind of divides up the main areas. Of course, there is the facts of the situation itself, but more importantly, it emphasizes the emotions around it, the feelings. What were the feelings of the individual, of the teenage girl at that particular point in time? Absolutely. Then, of course, the findings. You know, what were the findings, and then eventually what it is about the findings can we replicate in the future in other situations which are similar. But particularly for me, I found that the later was some kind of, for me, was an exemplification of very good practice, so to speak, because I suppose she looked at the situation and explored that there might be maybe some risks, because of course there's an individual who has been overwhelmed by a particular an overload of information, and of course it's not clear whether she has had a history that she may put herself at risk. But I suppose she was they were trying to limit the risks which may present from certain environmental factors, absent the information, the extra history we have about this lady. So by writing the letter and offering her the option of having that private space within her property, her primary territory, so to speak, you know, that is safe, familiar, that has even a bathroom where she can go to at any time, and then it had that enough time for her to have that moment to herself. But importantly, that the lady also offered at any one point in time she could provide a meal, and if she felt hungry, which was also another thing, at least some nutrition and hydration would be provided. In other words, it was all about keeping her also safe. So I think for me, those were the things I picked up, which were quite good about.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's pretty cool. And I mean, food's kind of important to everybody, but for young people in particular. But a lot of foster children are going into homes where they don't necessarily feel like they belong. it's difficult for them to feel that this is their space, particularly if they've had a lot of moves. So it might take them quite a while to kind of build a relationship with trust. I think that's part of what was going on here. Do you know what I mean? So trust is easy to break, but difficult to build, isn't it? But that whole idea of just sitting back, take your time. So shall we try the other one then? So I left the other one more as a problem to be solved. Now, you may or may not have had an opportunity to talk about this because you only had a certain amount of time. Did anybody, did you have suggestions? How did you think this was going to work out? Chuese, and then Maxine, and then Nat. Is your hand still up from previous, Jude? Or okay, that's cool. Chuese, and I hope I have pronounced your name properly. And if I haven't, tell me how. I think you're on mute. Here we go.
Oh yeah, hi everyone. So I'm part of Group A, and we discussed this primarily. So part of what we discussed was that. So we said that people with dementia, obviously. So we sorry. So we
That's
talked.
okay.
Yeah, so we talked about different things that might have caused him to be aggressive and aggressive towards members of staff and towards his fellow residents. So one of the things we talked about was that he might be suffering from UTI. So that's a urinary tract infection.
Yeah.
So people with dementia with this type of condition, they tend to get confused and they tend to get aggressive, if aggressive as well. So the other thing we talked about also was sundowning. So sometimes, depending on the day, so either be it in the day or in the night, especially when the sun is setting and it's going towards the night. So people with people that suffer from dementia, so they tend to get a bit confused that why is it dark, or is it time to go to bed, or is it time to get up and whatnot as well. And then someone in my group, I think it was Asanatu, she was saying that sometimes as well, maybe in the early hours of the morning, he goes to the toilet and then he gets confused and doesn't know the way back to his room, and then in his attempts to locate his room, so he keeps going into everyone's room until he finds his room as well. We also talked about being so it's familiarity with the carers on site. So someone with dementia that sees different people at different times might get confused. So maybe having one or two carers that he is familiar with might reduce the incident of him being aggressive to people.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, as well.
So I'm not going to comment on what you said. I'm going to let everybody talk, and then I'll kind of tell you what actually happened.
And the final thing we discussed was we also thought of changing medication. So again, I don't know. So if a change in medication could trigger confusion as well, and again being aggressive towards people. So I think that covers more or less of what we discussed. So addressing these issues could potentially, I'm not saying it will, but could potentially obviously address his confusion.
Okay, so you have several options there, and I'll tell you which of them are relevant when we come to the end. But Maxine, what would you like to add there?
Just the addition, we talked about a number of things, and putting into consideration that people with dementia can be rather difficult to pin because it is all these interchanging behaviors, and because of the disease being that there is so many types of dementia. So the carer that is rather unqualified might struggle with the behavior, and it might need a specialist to look at. Could be so many things, really. It could be just the change of his routine, like somebody has mentioned, the UTI, and lots of other things might be going on. It could be maybe his medication needs to be reviewed and look into what is going to make him a bit more calmer. Lots of things. So really, it could be try and error. Look at him and look into different things because of his particular condition. And I think in the group we did talk about what does it do to other residents, and being that I would assume that he's in a facility that houses people that have got dementia with some sort of impairment. It may not come easily to them that maybe we need to feel sorry for him because of his condition. So you have to look at how do we looked at maybe what are the options of how to protect those other ones, because they might also get anxious or contributing to the bigger problem, or scream, or even do something hideous. So is really, we were talking about providing things like MTD meetings and looking at maybe focusing with the GP, see what they could do for this person. And also maybe one thing that I forgot to mention, you have some of the Admiral nurses. These are like specialist nurses in dementia that work with such people, and sometimes they work with care homes. So how do you bring in such people maybe to give advice
Fair
and
enough.
also to give
MDTs,
carers,
specialists, so a kind of a new selection of thoughts. Okay, I'm listening, and I'll feedback at the end. Nat, and then Philip, and then I will kind of tell you what actually happened.
I think sometimes we're very quick when someone already has a condition, especially dementia, to be like, right, we need to do all these things without first being human and looking at the individual and what their purpose is in trying to do this. Also, I think the term aggression gets bandied around far too much with dementia. Yes, people can be aggressive, but often it can be maybe they're anxious, they're frustrated because you're not understanding what they're trying to do. This whole people living with dementia are aggressive. We need to be very careful around the language of that. Firstly, like, what's he trying to achieve? A bit like when people used to say people are wandering, they're not, they're walking with purpose. It means something to them. So instead of going problem solve, okay, you're a human. What are you trying to achieve here? And how can we help you still do whatever it is you're trying to achieve without interfering or upsetting potentially others? Is it, firstly, if someone's lost something, can we help you find it? Or I've just seen in the chat people say that he used to be a postman. If he used to be a postman, get him in the morning when he's getting up, find him some paperwork, some treading, something he can go and collect from different rooms that aren't other residents' rooms, that he's still fulfilling his purpose, because whether you're living with dementia or not, you're a human, you have goals, you have a purpose you're trying to achieve, and help him still achieve that in a way that's not upsetting other residents. And let's start all those simple things first before we go, oh, huge problem, let's get all these professionals, we need to solve this. Let's just do a bit of human to human work and interaction and be people.
Okay, very good, Nat. Thank you very much. Walking with purpose there. Love that. And Maz, you get the last note then.
No, yeah, I was just gonna agree with that, and I kind of forgot that it said it was a person in the headline. But yeah, just give him some letters. He could post them, because obviously, if that's the case, he's reminiscing or going back to when he had a sense of purpose and meaning with his occupation. And so, it's a sort of long-term memory thing. And so give him some letters. He could just put them under the other resident's door at 4 or 5 in the morning, or whatever he wants to do. But obviously he's getting upset. Well, if this is the interpretation he's getting upset because he's trying to do his job, basically. So just find a way that he can do that either meaningfully or artificially.
Thank you very much. And Philip, it turns out you get the last shout here. And then I'm going to have to tell you
lowered my hand. So just to say, our group, we did come up with a similar idea to what Maz and Shana was saying. Because he's a postman, it kind of probably explains why he gets up so early and why he wants to go door to door, because like that is part of his job. And we were saying, if we can gather that information about him, and that could help us formulate maybe a plan. And I think in our group as well, Tom was saying similar. We could incorporate something, letters, let him do his job, and the aggression might be coming because he's anxious. He's not able to do his job. He doesn't understand what's going on, and people are stopping him from doing it. So we could have looked into just supporting him, and then having prompts if there is a carer at that time supporting him. I think someone else in our group was also mentioning maybe we could put up some posters, signage, something like that on the wall as well as visual prompts if he's going around. That might help him with his routine and maybe lower his anxiety, which then maybe lowers his aggression.
Okay, so we're getting there. Fascinating watching you and listening to you all work it out. So we'll start off saying a little bit about the person who brought this to a class it was in, an apprenticeship program, entirely different one. And you notice she's a healthcare assistant, but she's actually a qualified social worker, but her qualification is not recognized in this country. So she's from another country, and it took her quite a while, but I believe she has actually achieved her qualification at the moment now. So kind of that was part of the thing here, but she did one of the most lovely pieces of social work, and this is why I like it so much. Now, you were right to think about the UTIs because, that could result in hallucinations, the medical kind of conditions, the confusions, occasional aggression, because if you're walking with purpose, as Nat says, and somebody interrupts your purpose, you might find that very frustrating and not understand why a person is doing that. But then you did work out pretty quickly, oh, he's a postman. So his purpose is to deliver letters. And so he's going into all the rooms in order to deliver these letters. And you were also right, you noted collectively that this could be quite upsetting for some of the other residents, that somebody is kind of trying to get into their room at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're trying to balance the compassionate and the human, but also to try to take his medical needs, his health needs, and the other residents' needs into account. So the HCA, as she was then, did a bit of life story work with the family. And it turned out that she actually had quite a good relationship. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I suppose my analogy would be when I was working in one of my probation offices, the receptionist is a key person. And, in fact, one of you said you were a receptionist. Is that right? Am I right, Hasanatu? Did you say you did that? Anyway. And we noticed when our favorite receptionist was on, nobody ever kicked off. Nobody ever had a problem. Nobody ever shouted or roared. And she went off for 2 weeks holiday one time, and the new person came in, and there was just ructions all the time. Do you know what I mean? So your way of dealing and interacting with people makes a huge difference. So the healthcare assistant never had a problem with him being aggressive or anything like that. He was never aggressive to her, but he was to other staff. So there's something going on there about the nature of the interaction. So they did a bit of life story work and worked out that he was indeed, and I can see that Shannon and Maz and Hasanatu, you've all talked about the fact that he was a postman. So he's doing his rounds. That's what he's doing. So you can kind of then try to work out, okay, how can we match up his purpose in such a way that it does not cause all these problems? Because there has been all the MDTs and the specialists and the guy, all these various people chipping in about what should happen. And it turns out it's the unqualified person who makes it kind of progress, even though I say unqualified because she was qualified in another country. But she had very good interpersonal skills, and she talked to them. They worked this out about the post office. So she went and got a little bag, like a post bag, and made up some mock letters. Do you know what I mean? With addresses. And she got a couple of cardboard boxes and painted them red and made a post box. And he'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she was on one of the night shifts and was able to kind of show him where the letterbox was. And he opened the thing, picked up his letters, put them in the box, went round the rooms and just put the letters in without opening the doors or causing a great kerfuffle, and went back to bed. Because that's what postmen do, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Problem solved. And it was because of that life story work, but also trying to think, what is he trying to do here? It was the human touch that made the difference on the reflection. She did tell me that she tried to claim for the post box and the bag of the materials through her expenses, but they weren't having it. Do you know what I mean? So she couldn't claim it. But I just liked it as a kind of, I just like good examples of positive social work. And they're sometimes counterintuitive. And when you see the solution is kind of elegant in its own way, isn't it? It makes total sense. But it took a little while to get to that point before you get the elegant and simple solution, because the consequences would have been potentially quite severe. Do you know what I mean? Where else was he going to go? Do you know? And so there you go. So the importance of reflection in actual practice and as a real world practical activity, not as just kind of, I don't know what you might call it, navel gazing or anything of that nature. It's something we do, and it should result in something in the real world. So moving on a little bit to commonly used models. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on these because you could spend ages on them. And bear in mind, of course, a tool or a model is only as good as the person using it. The other thing to bear in mind with these is that you should kind of complete the cycle. And you'll see in later sessions that we'll do that sometimes people do a bit of the cycle and don't finish the thing. That don't work very well. So if you're going to use it, use the whole thing. But also, it may be a good way to structure your own written reflections when you're doing academic assignments. And I would suggest that, particularly with this short reflection after the assessed interviews, try one of these out. See if it'll work for you. You'll be doing further reflections when you're on the CLE, and getting into the practice of using these models might well be helpful. So models, as I say, are not the real world, but they can help organize our thoughts and actions and help us understand what's going on, and also to unpick. Because in this instance that I've just given you, in both of them, people were having some intuition, gut feeling, kind of a spidey sense of what's going on, but need to articulate it to be able to express it in a way that you can then actually kind of progress on from. So, I mean, the models, some of these are relatively recent, but reflection is as old as human beings. This is what we do. We're reflective animals. We think about what's happened. We remember what's happened. We talk with each other and discuss and debate. And that's how we kind of progress and move on. So contemporary models started from general ideas about reflection. Dewey is one of the important people in this, and then started being applied to different professional sectors like employment, learning, teaching, and eventually comes to social work. But of course, social workers have always reflected, you know. So here's a couple. This was Dewey's kind of early model. As you see, it's 1938, kind of identifying a problem that is perplexing and felt. And we have a sense of it, but we can't work it out. So we observe, refine, identify the problem in a more kind of full way, develop maybe a hypothesis or an understanding about it. Where does it come from? And then test the hypothesis. Think about it. Is this going to work? And then try it out in the real world. Fairly obvious, not something that's used very much in social work writing, but it's an example of one of the earliest kind of examples. Now, people often use this Borton's developmental framework. It's very simple. What, so what, and now what, right? And if you wanted to do a quick reflection on something, it's not a bad way, isn't it? What? I did the practice interview. So what? Well, it kind of went really well, but there was just one thing that was a bit weird and I want to do differently. Now what? Well, I'm going to try this thing the next time I do that, right? And then, you kind of continue on around the cycle. And it's kind of like the what is describing the event or process. Description isn't enough, and in particular with writing. If you're only ever describing he said, she said, we're not really reflecting them. We're just kind of reporting. So the so what needs to have thinking, analysis, and drawing some conclusions. And the now what needs to have some future goals and actions. So as a model for writing short reflections, pretty good. People use it all the time. It's called different things, actually. Different people seem to attribute their name to it. But I mean, really, is it even a model that you could lay claim to? It's just what, so what, now what? I mean, come on, it's not rocket science, is it? But there's a kind of a deeper level to this as well. If you remember at the start, I said, or a couple of slides ago, I said something about having definitions of reflection, what it is as an activity, is a kind of more fundamental thing than actually models of reflection. So I was kind of thinking, well, what's important to you about reflection? What do you think about it more generally? Now, Sean, because there should be a number out there over his O, but anyway, it talked about reflection on action and in action. Now, these are quite different things. I'm guessing most people are used to the idea of reflecting on action. You think about something after it happened. Then you kind of think about it. You kind of maybe have a little bit of a distance from it. And you're kind of thinking, oh, yeah, oh, I noticed that. And you might do Borton then to, or Gibbs or Kolb or one of the many versions that we have. Reflection in action is also something he talked about. And this is thinking about it while you're doing it. Now, there are times, particularly sometimes maybe we have a slightly testy intervention with people, that, you know, we're talking to the person and listening to them, but we also have a little bit of our own self-talk going on. Let's just say somebody's a little bit escalated or angry. And, you know, in them situations where our focus tends to be quite sharp, right? Because you're trying to take in a lot of information, but you're also trying to stay safe. You know, that's, you know, we don't want to put ourselves at risk. So we kind of, we're thinking very carefully about what we say, about how we phrase it, and then we're kind of looking very carefully and making an assessment in the moment about the person's response to what you're saying. I could do a thing about de-escalation that describes about that, but, you know, we're thinking about it as it happens. And it might be, let's just take the anger out of it. It may be that a person is finding it difficult to say what they want to say. And you get a sense, your reflection in action might be, maybe they're embarrassed or ashamed to talk about this thing. And maybe now what I need to do is just kind of sit with the silence for a little bit and not jump in and fill the gap. And you know, that silence sometimes that you have between people is very powerful little space to be. So powerful, in fact, that we try to jump in and fill it with kind of noise and chatter, when sometimes what we need is just to sit in it. Very, in my experience at least, powerful and important moments. And sometimes you have to let a person have a moment or two to gather what they want to say so they can say it, and to be patient enough to be able to sit with that with them while it's happening. So that was kind of Sean's idea. Now, if we had a little longer, I would kind of ask you to think about your reflections in and on action. My guess is it would be too difficult for you to find those things. That the reflection on action, I'm sure you'd be able to come up with examples of that, because you're doing it in your team meetings and your discussions with colleagues. Maybe you're going home on the tube or the bus or driving and you're thinking about this thing as you're going along. So that's not that unusual. It might take you a little longer to think about the reflection in action. But I would be very surprised if you couldn't think of examples of those things as well. So it might be a helpful model in terms of your reflective writing as you go forward, be thinking about those two elements of reflection. And then a few more models. I'm not going to spend long on these. I kind of introduced them. Some of them you might be familiar with. Kolb is very well known. The learning cycle, you start off with the concrete experience, then you reflective observation, and you conceptualize or thinking about, basically you're creating a theory about what happened here, why did this happen here, and armed with that you might approach a similar situation in a slightly different way. Again, quite useful for organizing reflective writing. in the workplace and on your studies. And again, we'll have more time to be talking about these things. That's just another version of the same thing. But one of the things I will notice about this is that this is a cycle that if you don't do the full thing, it don't work very well. You're not actually applying the model. And I'll show you some examples later on about supervision, not today, how that might work. I said journaling and writing things down is quite important. So I took some social workers' reflections that they had drawn and written. This is from a program called Iris in Scotland. And the social workers were encouraged to actually draw these little pictures and write their reflections. And I kind of thought, okay, we got all sophisticated today. But one of our common problems at work is IT systems, is it not? Do you know what I mean? Now, that's just as worth reflecting about as anything else might be, And this is a degree of frustration from this person. And, sometimes it's okay about some of our more negative moods and how we might feel. I'm certainly not a ray of sunshine all the time. I can guarantee you that. And I'm quite good at complaining. But again, it really is to make the point that you can reflect on anything. It can be things that are kind of might appear even boring or of no consequence. But, this had significant consequence for this particular worker. Do you know what I mean? These frustrations are things that we all experience at some time or another. But the act of writing down, drawing, expressing this in various different ways is, helpful. You'll see this often as well as Gibbs. Gibbs comes from education. It's a slightly more kind of expanded version. You'll see it looks a little bit like Kolb, etc., but probably better for kind of longer reflections, for longer essays and things of that nature. But again, something that we see used quite often in social work practice. This was about the stress of trying to travel to customers on time. Now, anybody, particularly if they're a care assistant or somebody like that, will have experienced this. We have all sorts of IT systems to manage the calls, etc., not getting paid between the calls, all of these kind of things is part of the sector. But this is somebody who got somebody out of bed for the first time in 3 weeks. And she was just really delighted, And she just says, after this weekend, I feel very honored to work in the care sector, as I'm lucky enough to work with such kind people who always appreciate what you do for them. Reflection isn't just about problem solving, is it? It can be about appreciation. And I just kind of like this example, and hence that's why I put it in there. But also, this is not making the news. Do you know what I mean? It's a small thing in a person's life, but she gets out of bed. That's a massive thing for her, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Again, we have to have some positive examples, don't we? So when we're thinking about description and analysis, and this is just an introductory kind of note, as it were, about reflective writing. So there'd be a lot more of this, but just kind of thinking a little bit about your reflection. So the description, fine. You're able to give an account and other people understand what happened. So that means you have to pick your detail and pick the important details quite carefully, because, you could go on and on and on in description, but that will deny you the chance to actually do the reflective bit. So our writing needs to be clear, concise, and well structured. And you'll find this in the program that we're continually stressing the idea of clear, concise, and well structured writing. And this has a direct bearing on your work as a qualified social worker and, of course, as an unqualified person. You don't have forever. It is important to keep records, accurate records, because other people use these things, and you're also using them as a way of describing that person and the experience you had with them to other people who you don't know. And that record may stay there for a long time. And you cannot write 4,000 words every time you do a case note, can you? Do you know what I mean? So writing with precision and being concise is important. At this stage, we might have a little bit of thoughts and feelings. We're tempting to be objective because it is description, but the emotion and the analysis kind of come afterwards. So in analysis, we're looking at a deeper understanding, kind of what's actually really going on here. Looking at particular elements, perhaps, that were more important than others. Seeing the positive and negatives, and challenging assumptions, both about other people and ourselves. So if I'm in a situation, which is not entirely unusual, and I find myself being cross at somebody else, and maybe I try to blame them, it professionally, certainly, and probably more generally, an important question would be, what am I contributing to this situation? Is there anything I did here that I need to check myself about and learn from? Obviously, then we make connections to other experiences, because generally, if things matter to us in terms of reflection, they're probably connected to something else or other experiences we've had, and learning. And of course, because you're writing academic work, you need to link to external sources, which is going to be theory, research, case studies, and things of that nature. Now that's slide one. We'll spend a little bit more time on doing that, as I said, but just a kind of a pointer about reflective writing, the kind of thing we're looking at. So I'm only going to do 2 more models. I'm going to do them quite briefly. So you've seen the 4 F's model. That was Greenaway's model, reviewing by doing, it's often called. And that was the model in this SPIP example with Jessica's story. The objective description of what happened, feelings, do you know what I mean? Because it's quite emotive, do you know what I mean? People are invested in this. The findings, what sense can we make of these things? I should have drawn a little arrow going facts, feelings, findings, and future, because that would be the order. So I'll remember that the next time I use this slide. And what do we learn from looking at both the feelings and the facts? And what can we do? What can we do differently or better next time? And they use that model in the particular example in a very effective way. And I'm going to leave, there's several slides about that, but the next bit, but they're kind of a little bit repetitive. This is the SHARE model and has become very popular among our learners and social workers in general. And this is Siobhan McLean. She has a ton of videos online. They're generally quite informative and quite entertaining. She's a very good public speaker. She did it with 2 other people, which is it Suzanne? No, I'm trying to think of Finch's first. Joanne, I think it is. Oh my God. But it is Prospera Cheatham. I'm definitely sure I know who that is, because she was, you may remember, did the Mandela model in another presentation about the course. So they have brought their collective and extensive social work experience together in a new model, the SHARE model. Now, in actual fact, you can't get this online because they self-publish this. You'd have to buy it. But we provide some of those materials. I think we might even have some hard copies in the library, quite likely. But the SHARE model is the core of it. So it's a different approach. And it's proved to be quite effective for a lot of people. So it stands for what we see, what we hear, what actions we take, what we read, how we evaluate, and sometimes, but not always, the decision, because sometimes the reflection is a reflection just of itself. So there's various, I'm not going to go through every single slide, but there's prompts, ways of kind of how you might answer this question. So what have you seen? So Craig earlier on was talking about what he saw. And Craig, I'm just going to use your example. I hope you don't mind. But the young man has his ski mask on. And that's what you see. You see the way that he walks. And, you know, there's kind of important learning in these kind of things. And of course, just by themselves, it's not enough. And you need to explore that in a bit more detail, which you did. But there's a bit of thinking here, what might we have lost sight of? Are there things we don't know? A bit like Abraham Wald's plane, right? The planes that don't come back, we don't see them, do we? And we don't know what's happened with those planes that don't come back. You can describe your own vision in terms of this situation. Am I seeing it clearly? And what a good outcome would look like. So in a similar way, all of these slides, you can go and have a look at them in your own time, have things to tell us. Now, what interested me when you were having discussions about your reflections earlier on is you started to do reflexivity. And you'll hear this phrase. So we know kind of what reflection is. Reflexivity is thinking more about who is telling us the message, what language is being used, what context is this happening in. So the reflection isn't happening in a vacuum, and the language and the people who get to speak and who does not get to speak are also an important component of what's going on. So collectively, you were already doing a more advanced thing than your kind of basic reflection, and you very quickly kind of went there and kind of seemed to spark off each other to kind of continue the conversation. So I was watching collective reflection in practice. So as you can see, actions, read. I'm going to always say to you, read, 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 do more reading, do some more reading. Do the reading while you have a chance to, because there's a lot of resources that you may not, in your working life after you qualify, have a chance to access those resources again. And obviously, evaluate, decide. As I said, I won't go through them all. Why do it? Obviously, some of this is about self-awareness, growth, professional and personal development, but also developing creative answers to difficulties, helping with problem solving. You could see with the healthcare assistants, you could see the stages of the problem solving. You could see the information that you were gathering, the things you wanted to know, and it got more sophisticated as it went on. But collectively, you were able to generate all of that. Think about your ability to evaluate and plan for success, but also, of course, to be conscious of our own potential for bias and discrimination, because I think we all agree we all have that in one way or another. Use the best use of the knowledge available, find out more things. So in this instance, for example, UTIs was mentioned. We know that UTIs can make people, particularly older people, very confused, distressed, but they can actually result in hallucinations. A person may see things that are not there. Do you know what I mean? And so there was some kind of collective knowledge from our adults colleagues who know this. Do you know what I mean? It would be good to avoid past mistakes, but for our purposes of the course, we want to maximize our opportunities for learning. And as a last couple of slides, how you might do this reflection business. So a narrative, we will be asking you to reflect in the written form and tell us the story, but not just the description, what you learned from it. You'll be collecting an index of evidence and other things, and that will be about that. A reflective journal is a really good idea if you can keep this in work. Now, when I say reflective journal, I don't mean write 2,000 words every day, right? But what it is useful for is if something significant happens, a lot of the time it might not be a big thing. Make a brief note of this. Keep a journal for these things so you can keep track of them. The reason is because our brain doesn't store everything. Do you know what I mean? And it may be a small point and we forget about it. Somebody else reminds us about it. We've all had this experience and you go, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay. So instead of relying on other people to prompt you, make a little note to yourself. I guarantee you this will be helpful for your reflective writing, gathering of evidence and various things that you have to do in the coming 2 years. Critical incidents, there's a particular model. Again, you'll get to see that particularly in the second year. But there are models that are not just reflective models, but they're writing models that sometimes can help. Free writing is just start off writing whatever the hell you like. It may be useful to some people or not. And reflective commentary is a slightly different model again. So there are various different ways of doing these things. And we are like a minute to, which I'm kind of pretty pleased with myself that we Got to a minute to the hour, and I'll stop sharing. And I've run out of stuff to say. Is that making some sort of sense to us across the day? I'm hoping that some of it was.
Yes.
I really liked
Yes,
hearing
thank
what
you.
you had to say. I think
Yes,
this is going to be
definitely.
fun on this course. Yeah. And I found out a lot of people have cats, but I wasn't expecting that entirely. By the way, I'm not being too facetious. So it may be that you have to do learning logs, etc. My little hint for them is do them on the same day. Probably the best way to approach them is just think of 3 things to say, write them, and leave it alone. Do not write reams and reams and reams, but get into the discipline of keeping them going, because it'll make your life a lot easier. Because the office will chase you for these things. So it's tedious, boring. Your course is quite demanding. There's no 2 ways about it. And kind of doing things little and often, like housework, will actually save you a lot of pain and grief. Lastminute.com is hurtful, Shukri, you have your hand up there.
Just to ask, I'm a bit of a storyteller, and I cannot, by the likes of me, write just a few lines. I blab and I blab, and by the time I finish blabbing, it's like a page and a half. And is it that just to say what we learned that day, like the title, how you guys put it, just for example, communication or child development, or maybe add 2 words and say we looked at child development, or we looked at theories, or we looked at communication and reflection. Like today, we focus on a lot about
Shukri.
decision
So you
making.
also talk, you like you write also.
I do.
So I get the point. So here's what I have to say to you. That you only have so many hours in the day. When you're writing essays in particular, you're going to have a word count. They'll allow you to go over the word count by about 10%.
No, that's fine. No, how do
No,
I?
No, I'm not done yet,
finished.
Shukri. Okay. I'm not quite finished yet. So what a lot of people do is they just blast out their writing, and then suddenly they have 4,000 words for a 2,500 word essay, and then they have to go through the painful business of editing, which is really, really difficult.
That's me.
So I would say the reflective journal is probably going to be really useful to you, where you can let rip and kind of give yourself the freedom to express yourself, and however long it takes on whatever you want to say, you can do that. So do that, and then go back to it and say, what are the 3 or 4 main points that I want to take out of this, and put that in the learning log.
Okay.
Because God forbid that you shouldn't have the chance to express yourself. But there is pragmatic elements of this. You have to survive the course.
Very small box.
Natasha.
So I'm really sorry, and I know that this was explained to us, but where is the learning log? I've been making my notes of every day, so that's not a problem. But I can't find.
Well, I'm just kind of looking at the module now.
It's where the module is. If you look at it, it says, when you just click.
Well, on the home page.
On the home page, if you when you click and you come to where we're learning, like it says. Where it says schedule on the lower bit, it says learning.
Oh yeah, I see it. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I dropped it on the chat box.
That's really
Thank
helpful
you so much.
that you said
That's
that. I'm
okay.
going to share that page now, because you might not be the only person. You'll find this happens, that when you have a question, there may be other people with the same question, but they don't ask it. So I'm just sharing the screen now. So can you see the screen? Up here, learning log for 7050.
Yeah, great.
So,
thank you.
And thank you for your supporting each other and finding things. Angela.
I've got a question about case notes. We talked about, I think, something about there is, my understanding of case notes, there is this description bit about the interaction you have with let's say the client, and then there is the analysis bit. When somebody then requests access to their records, would they then when they get their records, do they see both the description and the analysis as well?
They'll see everything. Okay, so the way it works is if somebody keeps a public record about me, I'm entitled to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so a good hint for writing case notes is always write with the idea in the back of your head that the person I'm writing about is going to read this.
Yeah.
Because it does actually make a difference to how you record things. Do you know what I mean? So I always write in that kind of a way. So if such and such a person saw what I read there wouldn't be a surprise. It will be accurate. So that makes a difference to how I interact with them also, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I have to be open and transparent with them because I'm sure you've noticed this in life. It's far more effort to lie and be honest than it is to be open and transparent because you have to remember all those lies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, one thing with case notes, what happens, and there is some research about social work supervision like this, that what happens is people give really lengthy descriptions and they go on every single thing that ever happened, and suddenly you're into 1,500 words, and then there's a little bit left over for analysis at the end. Now, try to shift that balance away from description and into analysis. It takes time. It's a discipline. You know what I mean? There's different types and forms of writing that are suitable for different contexts, and we're not trying to write a novel. You know, it's far more serious. You know, Shukri.
Now, just to say, although every organization have got their own way of recording cases, how the early help, how we do is that the purpose, who do you meet, where do you meet them, who was available, who was present, what was the purpose of the visit, and then to kind of do sections. Have you seen the children? What was talked about? The client's view, and kind of just write everything as factual as possible.
Yeah.
So that's what happened and how it happened. Yeah.
Having a model in the structure can be very helpful, but also it can kind of make us miss out things, important things. But you know, it can also be very helpful. So I see that Jess and then Tom.
Hello. So sorry if this has been covered. I can't get my head around it yet. For the mentor stuff, where is the mentor agreement?
Okay. You're not the first person. I did mention it earlier, but you know, you're not going to take everything in because it's like about 1 million words spoken today. So with the mentor agreement, it hasn't actually been released yet. There is a template to use, and we will release that to you. So my suggestion at the moment is some people have already done this. Do the bit with the mentor where you kind of get to know each other. Try to use one of those models, the social graces Mandela model, or maybe one of those reflective models, to do that, getting to know each other and understand each other a bit, and then do identify your strengths. All of them you can cut and paste directly into the template when you get it.
Perfect. And the other thing, I double checked the schedule for the practice interviews and the interviews, and I'm definitely not on there.
Okay, that's cool. I am going to sort that out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
Where's that recorded anyway? I haven't seen it either.
Okay, I'll send out some stuff about this. So there's
That's
obviously
fine.
but at the moment, there's plenty of time. It doesn't happen until the practice interviews are 10th and 11th of November, so plenty of time. So, but I will send out.
Fine. That's fine.
I'm also sorry, Tom, for delaying you, but I made an attempt to record that guidance earlier on. It was shonky. So I am going to do a separate recording, and I will make that available to you, which hopefully will help. Okay, Tom.
Sorry, people probably want to go, but where we're bringing in this idea of writing to the child. I don't know if the course will cover that because it's quite, I guess, interesting or a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it is a bit tricky. The various places do that. They kind of do this in Kafka and stuff like that. And I've seen some of these letters from Kafka, and some of them are great. And some of them, oh my God, just don't do that. So it's a very, very tricky proposition, really. But again, every time you write about the child, you are writing to the child anyway. Do you know what I mean? Every case note. There's a woman called Rebecca Pierre. She works for BASWA, and she is also care experienced. And she wrote a blog in BASWA about going and getting her records and reading back, and which was somewhat dispiriting experience for her. So I kind of like the idea in theory of writing to the child, but that's very much more complex than it sounds, is my guess.
Yeah, it is. We're trying to assess in that style as well, which is even more complex.
Yeah. I kind of quite like that. I notice more people are doing that. In fact, you mentioned that to myself and Jacqueline the other day. But again, quite skillful thing to do. Requires reflection and thought, isn't it? Okay, guys, I think we put it in the WhatsApp group. It's on Aptem. I haven't even talked about Aptem, but that's one of the first things you're going to be doing with the mentors. But I'll send out guidance. I am not doing Aptem today, but you'll get used to that. It's just process system. But guys, all I have to say is I'm going to stop sharing. Didn't realize I was still sharing. Thank you very much for your time, your patience, and your input today, and particular your conversations and reflections. I enjoyed that no end, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. So
Thank you.
I'll
You
see you
too.
when I see you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so fun. There we go.